This is just a group of kids that I asked to sing, and they're not all here tonight, but I just asked them, they're not even in choir, some of them are, but I just said, let's, represent the school and let's sing for each other. And so these guys just were really gracious and volunteered, and now Dr. Arnold asked us to sing tonight. So.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you. Good work. Next month we'll be here again. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to declare an open meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Motion carries. The Open Meetings Act is posted on the door back there. Anyone cares to read it? Roll call, Krista. Here. Jim.
Yep.
Trent.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Wyatt.
Here.
Myself here. Everybody's here. Okay, now we will approve the consent agenda, starting with the agenda, two agendas for last 2 weeks. Okay, there's nothing on that. We'll move on to the, oh, that was the agenda, I'm sorry. We'll move on to the minutes. Nothing on that. We'll move on to the financials. Got a bunch of money, the way it looks to me, huh?
Yeah.
September's a good month for property taxes paid to the county.
Yeah, September of last year, we got $776,000 for general fund alone. This year, we got $1.1 million. So, very happy with that number.
So is that difference just because more people paid their taxes?
People
Because-
paid.
You have a variety of different things, yeah. A higher percentage of people paying, valuations,
That didn't really change valuation.
not much, no, not much, but depending upon who's dead and how and when they paid them.
So your activities report in here looks a little bit different than what you guys are used to because Tammy's getting onto my software. So as soon as the auditors are finished with the audit and they can get our cash balances put into our new system, then it'll look a little bit, it will look different than it has before, but this is just kind of to show you what went through the activity fund in a total, on a whole, not broken down by each individual section, so.
But there wasn't anything extraordinary in any of those. I mean, we still have a couple that are inflated. quite a bit that are just sitting there, and that's fine, your interest being one of them. Interest on your CDs, which is gonna be lower in this, until they mature again. You understand how that works, obviously.
Looks like the last one finally dropped. I don't remember
Yeah.
which one it was, but they're all down now.
Yeah. Madison County, so kind of as expected, you know, they went down with the economy.
And she also voided all the checks in that activity account, so
Yeah.
those are now cleared.
So those checks never were cashed, apparently? I mean, you don't have to notify them and ask them if they're gonna cash them?
Depends on who you ask. The auditors will tell you that you either have to notify them or you have to go to the claims court through the state of Nebraska and pay $75 for each check, noting that some of these checks are only for $20 and $30. For the people who we can reach, we'll try to reach out and say, hey, when you cash a check, if you've lost it, let us know. We'll reimburse them with the check, so.
Because a lot of these are like reps
Local.
and umpires and things like that. so
Exactly.
You think they would cash their checks?
Yes.
They're gonna drive you in there.
The referee during the junior high game left from the field the last minute and a half during the game. He was one of the linesmen, ran up, and it looked like did he pick up his checks? Is that it? The last minute and a half of the game, then ran back down and then finished officiating, just to make sure you got a check.
Those will probably get cashed.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, go buy cash those, I'm sure. Yeah.
We'll start getting some reimbursements from the feds on our lunch account, so you'll see, I don't anticipate that we're gonna need to subsidize that this next year with general fund money, as we'll go through at least December, it looks like, with free meals. And again, the reimbursement rate is pretty generous on that, and quite honestly, more so than what our expenditures are gonna be, so. So that'd be helpful for the lunch account, obviously.
Mrs. Carlson, I'm glad to see you donated to the school. Guessing I'll see your name as a signed check to sign next month. Okay, we're on the claims now. There's somebody else looking before that. So why does activities kind of take more paper than all the rest of it together?
Those are a lot of daily in and out on activities, and there's like 20 different sub-accounts in there. So, and Tammy's pretty busy, and we're paying a lot of those routine bills, activity bills mainly.
Anybody have anything in claims? Everybody good? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second?
Second.
Your first and second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, I assume we have some people want to talk. Want to comment, yes or no? Okay,
I'll go first.
I gotta read this, you're gonna. We're now at that portion of our agenda set aside for public comment. Each person wishing to address the board will be recognized by the board president. Also, each person wishing to address the board will be allowed only one opportunity to do so this evening. We request that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, and we will advise you when that 5-minute time period is elapsed. Please remember that this is a public meeting for the conduct of the business of the Plainview Public School District. Offensive language, personal attacks, and hostile conduct will not be tolerated. You should be further advised there is no legal protection for any comments that are made. Okay, Terrence, go ahead.
Chance Anderson. I guess my biggest thing I want to talk about was, I read about this Hall of Fame deal in the paper, and I do think it's a really good idea. But the only thing I would like to amend, or maybe make a suggestion to amend it, is it's pretty much focused only on like extracurricular activities, which, yeah, we've got a lot of people play sports in Plainview. We've had, 2 people go pro. 10, 20 people play for Division I. Great. I was part of a state championship football team, but that was a long time ago. Nobody really cares. I guess I think personally maybe we should have a Hall of Fame or consider a thing for Plainview graduates or alumni that are running like a multi-million-dollar business right now, or a very successful farm, or whatever it is. Like something doesn't have to be because, oh, the kid was a good athlete. I mean, you're leaving out everybody in Plainview that wasn't an athlete. And I guess I just feel like if for tax dollars to be spent to like make this Hall of Fame and stuff, it should be fair to like maybe kind of include everybody. I don't know, if you guys have any feedback, I'm willing to listen. That's just the only thing. I thought it was a good idea, and it's kind of cool to like have like, yeah, these kids all graduated from Plainview, they were good at this, this, and this, but I mean, we got some kids from Plainview that probably didn't even go to college that are making millions of dollars. And I'm not saying I know any right now personally, but I bet we could find some. And I just think that's something that maybe we should look at. That's it.
I know it's not covering what you're talking about, but it isn't just athletics, it's speech and one-acts and those kinds of things too, which aren't
But that's still
athletics.
extracurricular
Right,
activity.
and I said it's not covering everything you're talking about, but it's not just athletics, so.
Yeah, I know, okay. Yeah.
Well, I think what he was trying to say is more the entrepreneurs that came from Plainview, brought their businesses here, started their families here. You know, we want this to be a great town to inspire pride in the younger generation so that we can survive. So I guess I agree with where he's coming from.
Anybody else want to talk?
Yep,
State your name.
Kyle Tar. Yes, before school started, I had a conversation with Mike and Krista and Tim and Trent, back when Dr. Alt got corona. And at that time, it was in your, I guess Mike calls it protocol, that if somebody got it, you should test negative before you come back. Darren's explanation was the health department don't require that. Yes, the health department don't require that. Go around and talk to any of your larger businesses. Ask them what they do. You won't get back to work without a negative test in any larger business. Us Greg's one of them. If you test positive, you will have a negative test before you come back. Might have curtailed some of the problems you've had if you would have stuck to your policy or protocol, whatever you want to call it. I know the health, and I called the health department and they admitted, yes, they do not require them, but they also admitted that most businesses do. Any of your larger businesses all require it. I would call the school one of the larger businesses or employments in Plainview.
Julian Johnson, you can carry COVID, you can be positive for 6 months, according to CDC, working in healthcare. So just an informational thing, you can test positive for 6 months, even though you're negative and not sharing it after 20 days.
So places that require that, do they just not go back to work in that time? Like, is that how it goes?
They can.
They can.
But you can't carry it for 6 months in your body.
Does that make you immune?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Does that make you immune?
No, you can get it back in 90 days.
So that's just it. We hear so many different things and versions of this that it's hard to know exactly what course to take because there's just a lot of different opinions. So, and which one is right is up to the talk to. You know, I bet in this room we could come up with 5 different opinions on what we should do, be doing. So, you know, which one do you pick? Okay, anybody else?
My name is Melissa Dorr. I would like to thank Jim, Krista, Wyatt, Tim, and Trent. I recently had a meeting with Dr. Arlt. I called them. They were very open-minded, objective. They listened to everything I had to say. I didn't call you, Mike. I didn't call you because when I called you when I wanted recess on the agenda, you told me I was a constant complainer, or chronic complainer, is what you said. And you actually told me Darren said that. Darren and I talked about it in our meeting the other day. I had never spoke to him before that day. All I wanted was recess for my kids, and you said no,
This
that
was
you
a
would
year
not put it
ago?
on the agenda.
This was a year ago?
It was a couple years ago. And you said no, and I truly believe the only reason that my kids have recess is because of Heather Thompson. And I appreciate that. Those kids need that. Now, after the meeting the other day that was held at 6 a.m., there was a lot of people reaching out to me. They said, thank you for telling the board who they represent and who elected them. 43 of them told me they don't feel that you represent them. Not just you, the board in general. And I did tell the board members that. I mean, that's just a few that I talked to. Now, that day I also called you and I asked you if there was going to be a call from the school explaining that there would be school in session and that children were safe, you know, just explaining all of that. You told me the administration had received a slap in the face and that there no call would be made.
First I told you I would call them and get an answer for you.
Yes,
Did I
you
not?
did.
And what did I do?
You called
I
them.
called you back, didn't I?
You did.
Yes.
You did. So let me go back on that. I called you. You said, I will call you back. Let me find out. When you called me back, you said the administration had received a slap in the face. That is not true. I mean, protocol was broke. They were held accountable for it. It is what it is. It's done. So it was not a slap in the face. And you also said they have the number for the administrators if they want to know what's going on. Now, that should not be on every person in the community to call at 8 o'clock at night when they have their own families, all three of them. They have their own families that they need to deal with. I mean, I just feel
Okay,
that
back up
there
here a
needs to
little
be
bit.
more transparency
That
than what
email
there is.
came out from the administrators. At the bottom of their email, it says, if you have questions, call us. And that's what I told you. I said, read the email. It says on the bottom, if you have a question, call me. And that's what I told you to do. I said, it says right there, call them. I told you that I had a question for one of them. I texted them that evening about 9 o'clock. They responded to me immediately, and I got my answer. And I told you that if you had a question, follow the email, text them, they will respond to you. That's what I told you.
There was nothing that said school was going back to normal, other than a call that said school's back in session, or
There was an email
all
that
kids
went
report
out.
to school is what it said.
There was an email went out. At the end of that email, it says, if you have questions about tomorrow, call me.
But it didn't say they're coming back to school tomorrow.
I can't tell you that, but it did say, if you have questions, call me. So all you had to do, if you were confused with the email, was to make a text or a call to that person, and you would have got your answer. I bet you spent a lot more time getting on Facebook complaining about it than what it would have taken you to call or text that person and ask and got the answer to your question.
Well, I called you.
And I didn't have the answer because I didn't make the decision. That was an administrative decision at that time, to put that email out.
You know, Mike, I don't know what it
Okay,
is
you're done.
that goes on between here,
Anybody
right
else?
here and right here, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of honesty, fidelity, transparency. I mean, there just doesn't seem to be a lot. And I know I'm not the only person in this community that feels that way.
It's pretty easy to tell when you come to 2 meetings in 3 years, so.
Well,
All right,
you know,
we're
I
done.
trust
Anybody
the
else
other
have
board
questions?
members.
Otherwise, we're moving on. All right, number 8, Committee on American Civics.
All right, the only committee mandated by state law that school boards must have, the Committee on American Civics, which is designed by the Nebraska Unicameral to make sure that students in Nebraska's public schools are taught about American history and civics and responsibility, and so we have a list of things that through LB 399, which mandates really what we're supposed to do. The committee has to meet twice a year. And essentially, the board committee is assured by the building principals who are responsible for the curriculum of the school district that we indeed are teaching certain things about American history and American civics at certain levels. And they do give, some specifics. I'll share just a couple of those with you. Students between 8th and 12th grade must meet one of the following. They must be administered the written portion of the naturalization test. That's given to immigrants who are trying to become naturalized citizens. They must do that or attend a meeting of a public body. or they must create a project or paper and a presentation on a person or persons in an event commemorated by an American holiday. And so all of our students do a variety of those things, or multiple of those, between grades 8 and 12. At least 1 hour per week in grade levels below 6, teaching American history. Mrs. Thompson has a responsibility for that. That's done. She works with teachers to make sure that's done. Between 5th and 8th grade, time must be set aside for the teaching of American history. So there are some things they give schools obviously leeway to do to meet the mandates of 399. At least 2 courses in high school in American civics. And that can be a standalone class like government, or civics can be taught within the American history curriculum. And then appropriate patriotic exercises to be held on the following: George Washington's birthday, Abraham Lincoln's birthday, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Native American Heritage Day, Constitution Day, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and Thanksgiving Day. That's not an all-encompassing list. Of course, you can do more. Today was Columbus Day. Certainly reasonable to have some type of recognition in our social studies courses about why we have a Columbus Day in America, although not listed as an appropriate patriotic exercise necessary for that. So also our social studies curriculum is always available for public viewing, so public at any time can come and see our curriculum that we use for all of our social studies courses K through 12. So it's that's the Committee on American Civics. Mr. Fromm, Dr. Thor, and Mr. Tarr are on that committee. So, gentlemen, if you have anything that you want to share.
I think they're doing a good job. They had it all together.
Our second meeting will hold sometime in the spring, and at that meeting, that'll have to be more of a public meeting because we do have to invite the public, and we have to have public be available for public testimony with regard to LB 399. So in the month or so prior to whenever we hold that, I'll make sure that that is published and that folks know they have an opportunity to come in and be part of that discussion. We'll have the same discussion, a very similar discussion at that time that we did just prior to this meeting, and then we'll also be available for public comment with regard to our social studies curriculum.
All right, thank you, committee. Okay, number 9, review of board policy series 50412 and 50414.
Okay, so I dialed back the number of reviewed policies for this month, given the lengthy the lengthy action list. So 50412, regulating electronic devices, which 20 years ago, this wasn't a necessary policy, and now it's the one that maybe is the most prevalent in any school system. There's some language in here, and I would add, this is primarily a Mr. Schmidt area to have to deal with. But in the second sentence, prohibited items will be turned over. I don't know if will is the right word. It can be a tough mandate word. Shall is maybe a better word. I'm not necessarily suggesting that we change it, but maybe something to consider. Because quite honestly, Mr. Schmidt, if I would ask you, how many electronic devices did you have turned over to you today? On every day, it's probably?
I've had 2 all year.
2 all year, okay? But, so teachers generally, if we see it or hear it, if a student's not authorized to use an electronic device, and we do see it or hear it, we tell them put it away. We don't confiscate it and turn them over. We don't say give them here. Now, if it's chronic, multiple times in the same class or the same kid every day, that would probably be different. But our kids are pretty reasonable with them. And of course, in the past 10 years, schools have become much more tolerant. Hey, get out your cell phones and go to this app, and we're going to do this and this and this. So they found a way to, weave them into their lessons to a certain degree. So that's a word. Doesn't cause any problems, folks, but we don't really, say turn that over. And the language in the second paragraph, that's good legal language, substantially interferes with or materially disrupts the educational process. So that's the standard. If it's substantially interfering or materially disrupts the educational process, that's where it's a problem. So if we just see it or hear it, that's not a substantial interference with the process, but teachers have certain levels of tolerance with that. And then we'll talk about this later. Students shall not use electronic devices for recording or transmitting photographs, images, or sounds of other persons without direct administrative approval and consent of all persons being recorded. Well, no way. Kids don't ask their friend, hey, I want to snap you and send it out. Do I have your permission? That doesn't happen. Now, I think it's very common for us to say, I rarely see kids, when they can use their phones, I tell them no pictures, no volume. No pictures, no volume. So when they're eating, no pictures, no volume. And it's really honestly not a problem. So we haven't had to have a student assembly to say, all right, kids, we have too much unauthorized sharing of images. So it hasn't risen to that level yet. Students pretty much respect that to a great degree. But there's language in here which do we really make sure that nobody's in violation of policy 50412?
You should.
Well,
You should.
yes.
It's policy.
We should tell
If we
them.
want to change it, then we need to change it. That's all you gotta say.
Or we should make sure kids understand that they're supposed to have permission from their friends.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know how, that it's a problem, that kids are actually capturing images. They're pretty good about it, if they are. I mean, they're
I don't know how you
secretive
police
about it.
that anyway with taking images. I mean, how would you know? If you're gonna allow them to have the device, how are you gonna know that they are taking a picture or not taking a
Yeah.
picture? Maybe you can't go through them all every day and see what they do.
Yeah. We probably, probably just need to highlight it in our handbooks, with kids. But sometimes, if you draw attention to something, then you create maybe a little bit more of an issue with it. But it is good, and this is why we review these policies. It is good to see what language we have in there. And, we probably better maybe address that to some degree. So we will. Not use electronic devices at any time where there's an expectation of privacy, restrooms, locker rooms, as you might expect. So I don't necessarily have any suggestions for changes to this language unless you do.
Look into that deeper.
So are we gonna enforce it, or are we just gonna let them do what they want? That's my,
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
that's what I'm saying.
Mr. Schmidt, have you had any?
I'm not saying you have any problems, but then
Well, I
let's
know,
change it.
but I'm curious if we've had any instance at all so far this year of any either observation by a teacher or a student who, mentioned that, hey, somebody took my picture and I don't like it. To your knowledge.
I suppose it could tie into the bullying thing you talked about here in the handbook too, about the steps of bullying. It could be part of that, but you haven't heard anything where they said, this kid's bullying me by taking pictures or anything like that.
No, haven't heard anything like that. I was just talking to Heather a little bit. We probably need to do something with our students since we are transitioning to one-to-one, just to keep them a little bit better informed of what appropriate behavior is, using devices, taking pictures, things of that sort. So that's something we need to pursue a little bit, just so our students are well informed as well.
And Krista, it's a good point. I would say we probably shouldn't wipe that language out. We probably should make sure that our public and our kids are aware that, but I tell you what, as soon as we go say, kids, you can't take pictures of each other. Of course, we say you can't do that at school, because we know that they do, selfies, groups, and that kind of business. So it's challenging language if we want to really get down in the weeds of
Is
it.
that something you could do in the homeroom first thing in the morning someday? Just
Yeah.
every homeroom go over this policy with the kids a little bit?
There are a variety of things, yeah, certainly. If we just say, no pictures, no volume, well, that kind of covers it, because you can't capture an image without your camera. And as far as my observation, and I'm in the hallways and where they eat lunch and stuff quite a bit, it's very rare to observe, and it's usually something I hear, hey, nobody wants to listen to your music or whatever it is you got going on there right now. We can't have 50 kids' phones, with their volume, so. I think we're okay with it, but it's good for probably us as school board and administrative team to know that language is there, and
If you wanted to have them come back, come up with something with the kids and share with us next month with their,
Okay.
all right?
we'll report back, when we have some formal, direct, communication with kids that, this policy does exist, and, you're really not supposed to be taking pictures, and for the most part, I don't think we do, because, it's just not reported to us, certainly.
We do hit on, appropriate pictures and use of electronics and things of that nature and digital citizenship in the elementary building. And Kyle and I were just talking about where we could add more digital citizenship in the secondary building.
And we're looking at keyboarding. That's kind of that's a new class this year that we added to the junior high, and it's something that we want to evolve into, how to use Google Suite, digital citizenship, and the keyboarding skills that go with it, because I just don't want kids typing for 50 minutes, so that's kind of has to evolve yet. But that would be a place where we can add that into, just to teach internet safety and that, so.
That's a great point. Since we're going one-to-one, we have a greater responsibility for digital citizenship, and this can fit in with that very, very well.
Good. Move on to 50414.
Okay, I don't necessarily have anything here either. As I read through this, it's all applicable. That last paragraph would be one where, where you would generally, make an observation of something potentially hand signals, graffiti, presence of apparel, jewelry, accessories, a matter of grooming by virtue of its color, arrangement, trademark, or symbol. I mean, that's what lawyers do, is they create these policies with this kind of language. Really not a problem in Plainview Public Schools to have those kinds of affiliations, or for lack of better words, it mentions gang activities. I think this language is certainly appropriate.
Good. You else have any comments on? Okay, if not, we'll move on to number 10, COVID response plan.
Okay, just, I guess, been keeping you informed for the past month, what the risk dial's been doing. And after going down a couple weeks in a row in September, the district and the county has gone up, I think, 3 weeks in a row. And so we're at 1.8 now. We went from 1.6 to 1.8. Obviously, if we make the same jump, the district risk dial will be in orange. I was on a
I don't understand that at all, because according to Norfolk paper, Pierce County has dropped tremendously, but yet what you sent out said Pierce County went up 0.2.
It did, yeah. So I mean, unless I can't, I have to assume that the data is accurate that they send us. And again, the formula that goes into that, Julene would maybe even be able to speak better to it than I could. All I know is the number. I don't know the formula. I was on a meeting with some superintendents today, talking about this very thing, and what they intend to do if they were to go orange. Norfolk Public Schools in orange right now, but they are making a local decision, building by building decision, based on their own data on what measures they should take to mitigate the spread. So far this year, they've shut one building down. It's since reopened in one of their elementary buildings. So I guess we maybe need to be prepared to, consider on Wednesday at about 5 o'clock, the district may be orange, the county may be orange. And when I say the district, I mean the health district.
So,
but our numbers have come down quite a bit in the past month. Yeah, so I shared with you, I think we had 1 staff and 13 students. We're currently at 3 staff. I'm not sure how many students yet, probably right around that number, 12 to 15. They have changed the DHMs again for quarantines for family members, 10 students.
Total.
10 total. So a lot of our students were siblings. Siblings of somebody who's positive or is awaiting a test. They now are not requiring that whole household's quarantine. They're using the close contact rule for everybody. So they're not assuming that just because you live in the same house that you're a close contact, that you're within 6 feet unmasked for 15 minutes or more. They're not assuming that. So they're allowing that to be a family school decision on whether siblings need to quarantine if one of them is positive test or awaiting results of a test. So that will bring numbers down. That will help to hold numbers, lower than what they had been, and that has been probably the source of the greatest frustration, not just for school, but I think for families, that all the kids got to go home because one is sick, has symptoms, or is awaiting a test, or has a positive test. So that's changed. That's good. We still have the DHM for teachers. Teachers are not required to quarantine. If a member of their family is positive, they just have to monitor for symptoms very carefully, but they can still stay teaching if they're symptom-free.
You had some students, didn't you? 3 to 4 weeks almost, they were quarantined.
Yes, yes. It's for some of the rules, your quarantine can't start until the symptomatic person in their family is no longer shedding spores, which is 10 days plus 3 days of symptom-free. So you have to go home for their isolation and stay home for your 14.
So 27 days.
After that. Yeah, I mean, it's just, yes, it can be.
Stupid.
And if you have a whole family and this kid gets it, and then this kid gets it at the end of that kid's, and that kid, I mean, it's, yes.
It's going to affect your elementary a lot more because they can't, say a parent
Absolutely.
tests positive, they can't take care of themselves, so the parent still has to care for them. So that's where you see that one come into effect.
Yes, Dr. George.
I was made aware of a student that tested positive here by their family member, that they received a note that went home with them. And the note said that they either had to get a doctor's note to return, quarantine for 10 days, or get tested.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
I don't know, I've seen the note, but yes, we do have to have a doctor's note that they can come back if they get a doctor to confirm that an alternative diagnosis. If a doctor will give them an alternative diagnosis, they can return, or they have to stay away for the entire 14-day quarantine. Shouldn't have said 10, because the quarantine is 14, isolation is 10.
I'm just repeating what I heard.
Yeah, okay. Or what was the other one, if they what?
Doctor's note, stay home for 10 days, or get tested. My question is, where did that come from?
The health department provides the language for the letters for schools to use. We can paraphrase it, we can copy and paste it.
Would you like to see it?
It would have been nice to have seen that when we were doing our mask mandate discussion back. I didn't know that was going to be in place.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I learned of this today.
You should have got a letter from school, not a letter from the health department. Yeah.
This is a letter from the health department. And we got these.
You should have got a letter from the health department when you tested positive.
I didn't test.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be self-diagnosed.
I can rank myself in that.
Yeah, that's the advantage of your position. So I know, I think probably 2 months ago, I know Mr. Schmidt, mentioned that we'd be sending letters home, but yeah, at that time, we probably didn't have the specific language.
When were you aware of this letter?
This specific letter came from the health department
Last week.
October 10th, so 2 days ago. It's an updated version.
What were you sending out prior to that?
The previous version from the health department came.
So since school has started, the health department provided a letter to schools, here's language that you should share with families when one of their students, when you have a student that has to be isolated or quarantined.
So you have a new one now?
Yes,
It came out?
Did any of you see the old one?
No, I don't remember seeing it.
August 26th.
Can you print us out the new one?
Yes. Yeah, if they make an
That would be
update or
good.
something, just send it on to us. I think Dr. Osmond sent a few things to us.
Yeah.
I guess I'm asking Dr. Carl, you know, we've butted heads on this for a long time. If you guys have information like this, we need it. I want it. I want to see it. You know, I don't like calling the Department of Education all the time and asking what the hell's going on and what do we do about this. I want to know from you. I mean, that's what we got you guys for. It upsets me, it really does. I mean, if you had it and that's what's supposed to go on, and we were discussing other things and making motions, other than that, you know, if we'd had that, that's what's going to go out, we would have known. You know, to me,
But Dr. Thor, in all fairness, I'm sure we probably discussed the same language that's in this letter, but, so I'm just saying, there certainly was no intent
Well,
to
I'm not very
hide what
smart,
the
so you gotta spell it out
department,
to me.
to hide what the department is advising schools to do. So you know, I'm sure it was part of the discussion, and a lot of things that I just said prior to this, similar language in that letter, but absolutely, you'll leave here with a copy of that language that the health department provides.
But I just want you to understand, Dr. Earl, you know, when we sit up here and we make policy on how we want to do this, and if we don't have all the information, it's upsetting.
Well, understood. I mean,
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Yep. So, on Wednesday, I assume that even if we go to orange, we'll carry on. I mean, that would be what I would recommend, because we are not seeing, you know, the fact that Pierce County is going up, I don't think is because of Plainview Public Schools. And so I think we'll be vigilant with what we're doing. Julian, community-wise, can you speak to anything community-wise, or
Actually,
or Jeremy?
activity rate right now for Plainview, they do Pierce County when they break it out. It's actually down this week, but the CDC's not posting it for over 2 weeks right now. So I'll tell you, we're helping you a lot as a school because the manor gets tested twice a week right now. So that generates numbers for the district, and that's how I think partially that you'll see that dial maybe start going down as long as Plainview Manor continues to be negative on testing. We test twice a week and I get the results back in 15 minutes. So we have 2 different machines going on right now and we're testing almost every day. So I think that will help as long as we continue to go.
Hmm?
So when you test, do you test things you suspect, or you just test generally on?
Mandatory test every staff person twice a week right now. If you're full-time, if you're part-time PRN, you might be once a week. So we're testing 50, 60 times 2. So we're putting in 120 some tests a week to CDC, which then goes to state, which then goes to the health department, the same North Central Health Department that Dr. Earl's talking about.
Awesome.
Could be good to the residents or just the staff?
At this time, it's just the staff, unless we have another outbreak, then we'll start testing residents. But we've been very fortunate to get these machines in to be able to do this. Not every facility has got that luxury right now. So I do foresee it helping at this time for the school to be able to continue on.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody else have any comments or anything about this? Okay, if not, we'll move on to number 11, the board retreat.
So as you know, Marcia communicated directly with the board, and we have set next Monday at 7 o'clock. I think 7 was the best time. 6, I was just going to ask you if 6 is too early.
I think 7 would work better.
Might be better for me.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking of Marcia, who has to drive back to Omaha.
An hour is good.
I can make 6 work. But it's up to you guys.
Anytime works for me. So if you guys are busy, you know, whatever.
It's not like we're gonna be an hour commute anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true.
That's fine with me.
6 would be
So do it at 6?
6 o'clock?
If you can make it work, I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking, she's got a 2+ to 3 hour drive home afterwards, but, so that's certainly appreciated. So if we go at 6 o'clock next Monday, you know, I just think that will be beneficial for us, and something honestly that we should, you know, probably do on an annual basis. I mean, it's just good to talk about mission and vision and goals and roles and responsibilities and unity and that's Marcia's job, is board development. And so certainly appreciate, you know, just, you know, another meeting. But what we do here is important enough to invest, you know, I think that additional time. So yeah, thank you for that. That'll be next Monday at 6 o'clock. That'll be a public meeting. We won't take public comment at that time, but the public will certainly be welcome to observe that conversation between Marcia and the board.
Just want to send an email out to the board that morning just to.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
You gonna be present?
Absolutely.
Or just the board?
Yep. Yes, the superintendent is expected to be present for board retreats. It's whether you want your principals present or not. That's, Marcia said that's up to the board. It's up to each school district on whether you want your entire administrative team or just your superintendent.
It would certainly be welcome, in my opinion, but I know they might have other obligations.
They got nothing going.
If there's volleyball, isn't there?
There won't be volleyball next week because the conference tournament starts. So there won't be volleyball on Monday.
Monday's 19th, right?
19th.
Possibly.
I guess I agree with Tim. If they feel like they want to be here to be part of it, they're, you know, we're not going to tell them they can't come, but
That's true.
I don't
Depends on
know.
Saturday's game, right?
it's mandatory that you have to be here either.
Yeah.
Junior high.
So that all right with everybody? Okay. All right, move on to action items, number 12. Discuss and take possible action on changing the school calendar to make January 18th a regular day of school for students and staff.
Yeah, so that was a full PD day. So it was a contract day for teachers, it was a day off for students. That PD day has been canceled, so it's still a contract day for teachers, we might as well have kids come to school. That's Monday the 18th, second semester, obviously, plenty of time into the future. We can capture another day of instruction.
Good.
They'll be very excited.
We got to vote on that, don't we?
Make a
Yes.
motion.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the calendar change to include Monday, January 18th as a regular full day of school for staff and students.
Second.
It's been first and second, myself, yes, Krista?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Motion carries. 13, discuss and take possible action on the purchase of 2 air purifiers not to exceed $5,500 each. Is that right?
Nope, total.
Total?
So yes, part of the discussion last week was find out where the problem is and fix it. Well, we believe our problem was weight room, and we talked about the air quality. It's not great. It's an interior room. Been talking about a wrestling room for years, a similar thing. You know, there's other different staph infections and so on that are prevalent in the wrestling room. The air in the wrestling room is worse than the air in the weight room. So I gave you extensive information about this air PHX. But I did make sure, I said, is this effective on coronavirus and norovirus? And indeed it is. If you looked, you could see that indeed it would be. So they're $2,500 a piece plus shipping and handling. There's about a 4 to 6 week backlog on them, as you might imagine. They're pretty, a lot of schools are finally pulling the trigger on these who have maybe been holding off as I had been. I had not brought this to you because I thought, it was too expensive. Was it necessary when maybe it sort of was, I don't know, but now it really is. If we want to keep our weight room open and we want to make sure that the air in there in the environment is cleaner and safer. Given these circumstances, then I think it's a pretty necessary item. So 1 or 2. We got wrestling coming up. We're going to want to keep our kids healthy throughout the season as best we can as well. There'll certainly be a heightened sense of cleanliness during the wrestling season and keeping kids healthy. I guess we should probably do our part and make sure that their practice facility is disinfected, sanitized, clean, surface areas as well as the air. So I would just...
We need 2 for the weight room, correct?
We don't. We don't. One will cover the square footage. One will cover the square footage of 1 per. So yes, I calculated square footage of each, and so the one that I'm recommending, we need 2 of the same. The square footage is similar. Weight room's a little more square footage because of the height of the ceiling.
I'd be interested to see that it's going to keep the air fresh in the weight room. And have that
This one right here is
that's going to keep up and keep it fresh. I can see in the weight room
Last
where
one.
it's the high ceiling and the open doors and everything. But
Would you come up with a main air handling system, the people that put in the new ones, or anything you can put in there that would cover a much greater area?
Well, so our HVACs will bring in fresh. They'll make sure you have fresh air through, but it doesn't purify the air. So when we put in the system in our locker room, that was an immediate notice, an incredible change. So that there's fresher air, not stale, stagnant air, but it doesn't take that ambient air and purify it.
I guess.
So I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
Yeah, we put in all this new air handling
Yeah.
system. Is there an attachment that goes on that can be, all the air can run through there? Have you asked those people to put that on?
No, that was never offered, that there's an air purifier as part of your HVAC system. Believe me, if they had it, they'd have tried to sell it to us.
Probably.
And I sure don't recall that or ever been part of any conversations where HVAC units can be outfitted with a purifier.
if they were, they'd be advertising the heck out of them right now, trying to sell them.
Yeah.
There's no better time to
And I
do it.
get 15 emails a day minimum on, folks trying to make money off of COVID, which I understand. But just one thing I started, the efficacy or the efficacy of this system when the technology was deployed in occupied spaces consistent with proper usage as set forth. User found that airborne organisms were reduced on average 90 plus. The surface organisms were reduced on average 95 plus. Those results generally rendered the treatment space clean and acceptable. So I know I overwhelmed you with information, but I thought it was important. I mean, there's scientific data on, when you're going to, if you're going to spend $5,000, you want some type of scientific data that it's a proven product. So that's.
Can I ask a question? My only question for this deal that you're talking about, isn't wrestling, last time I checked, you touch each other the whole time you're wrestling. Isn't that going to spread it no matter what, how pure the air is?
Not if the kids are healthy. Now, I imagine we're going to be testing them anyway, just coming in and...
So you think the coronavirus is going to go away before December, whenever this starts?
Oh, that'd be naive to think that.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're talking
back
maybe
here, she
next
just said it
summer.
can be in your system for 6 months, so.
I think,
I guess I feel like you guys are maybe trying to push this deal to the wrestling room just so we can continue wrestling, because, Plainview's
Yes,
been
that's
pretty good
true.
wrestlers.
That's true. We do want to continue wrestling.
Why
Yeah.
should
We want to keep kids
That's all I think
healthy.
you guys really care about is the sports.
We want to keep kids healthy, and so
All right, that's
this
enough.
will help, this will help to, how much you believe it will help, but it will help to mitigate the spread. It will help to keep our kids healthy. Is there any guarantee that we won't have kids that get some type of staph infection or contract it in, by touching somebody from another school? That's going to happen. We're going to see that this winter. We want to minimize that.
agreed.
Those are the places you identified as being where it's being spread, so I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer to try and solve that problem.
And I think that was
We don't want it
mandated of the
spread
board.
to the
I think
rest
that
of
was
the
Yes. it was.
I think that was a unanimous vote of the board.
Find the problem and fix
Find
it.
the problem and fix it. This will help fix it.
Absolutely.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 2 THX air purifying units not to exceed $5,500.
Second?
Second.
First, seconded, Trent?
Yeah.
Yes. Wyatt?
Yes.
Yes. Krista?
Yes.
Myself, yes, motion carries. Okay, now to the fun stuff, number 14.
Okay, just a little, I guess a little bit of background. About 6 years ago, this has worked its way through the court system and back to the legislature and then to the Department of Ed to interpret the regulations. Title IX is the federal law on sexual harassment in the workplace. Okay, and it has taken 6 years, and lawyers have been watching it work its way through the courts for 6 years, and lawyers of schools to determine how is this going to affect our schools. So the Department of Ed, just over the summer, issued their guidance on schools following Title IX regulations, and it's been extensive, and there's a tremendous amount of training that certain school officials are supposed to, that they will need to go through to make sure that you follow Title IX regulations with regard to sexual harassment complaints in the workplace. So schools are workplaces just like anywhere else. And so we have laws we have to follow, and so this is just a series of new policies and policy revisions that, quite simply, to a great degree, most of them just add specific language about making sure that people who feel they have a claim against their place of business with regard to sexual harassment, how they can go about using their due process to seek protection. Okay, so on all these policies, folks, 4 of them are just a first reading, and so you have a whole nother month to go back through it and see what the language is all about. A lot of legalese. The first one is very thick, and it's ×2. It's the exact same policy ×2. One goes in the personnel section, and one goes in the student section. Okay, and I provided for you in that first policy all the forms and all the responsibilities and all the reports in the Title I coordinator and what the Title I coordinator has to go through if they're having an interview with someone. So I just wanted you to see all that. It's all mandated by law. 4 new policies, first reading this month, second reading the next month, and then multiple policy revisions, which just adds some language which doesn't really change the policy entirely that much. It just makes sure that people in Plainview Public Schools have an avenue, and they understand what the avenue is, to file a sexual harassment claim against an individual or the school district.
Okay, I'm only seeing 3 in here. It's first reading. You said there's 4. The first 3 say first reading, after that they
Oh,
say as written.
okay. You have, so,
Mine says 4.
You're 4,
It's first 4.
okay.
14, 15, 16, 17.
My 17 says as read.
Mine does too.
Mine says first reading.
First reading of policy, so are you looking at the notes? Look at your agenda, look at your first page of your agenda. So, yes.
That doesn't
So
say either one.
number 17 on your notes.
Oh, right there, okay.
I see it, Mike.
Yeah, it's on that.
Yes, but number 17 on your notes should say on first reading. So yes, that is a catch. That is a good catch. Number 17 on your notes, so when whoever makes the motion on number 17, that should say 1000403 on first reading. So I don't have comments on everyone at all. You can go through these, make a motion, make a second, and vote, and it quite honestly can be that quick. It doesn't have to be. You can go policy by policy. But those will be captured up in our reviews later anyway. On our review, that's a little more extensive overview. So in the interest of time, they are mandated by law.
You can't make changes till then.
There's nothing we can do. We have to.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
So I'm saying you could move
let's go.
swiftly through these.
Might as well.
Yes, Dr. Clark, I did check on that. That is a very plausible request. I did check if it was the same language added to every policy. If it was the only thing that changed every policy, we could. But there are a few that were just different. There were a couple other nuances just based on whether it was in business or personnel or students or board. So I thought we better just do it right, which is take everyone.
I'll read them off. I'll read the motion quick.
Okay, so does anybody care if I just say all in favor on these action items? You're not supposed to. Does anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Instead of going around saying everybody voting separate.
Yes, you can do a voice vote, which is
That'll speed it up.
all in favor rather than a roll call vote. You can do a voice vote.
Yeah, okay. Okay, start with number 14. Discuss and take possible action on first reading of policy 404.12, 504.2, type, is that 404.22, 504.2?
404.12 and 504.24.
Okay, Title IX sexual harassment. I already screwed up. I'll accept the motion on that.
I'll make a motion to adopt policy 404.12 and 504.24 on first reading.
Second.
Okay, for the first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 15, discuss and take possible action on first reading of policy 402.15, staff conduct with students. Entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to adopt policy 402.15 on first reading.
Second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Kelly, you keeping up on that?
Yes, sir.
How are you? You just let me- 16, discuss and take possible action on first reading of policy 405.00, employee conduct and appearance. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt policy 405 on first reading.
Second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. 17, discuss and take possible action on first reading of policy 1004.03, live broadcast or videotape. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adopt policy 405.00 first reading.
Yep.
No, next
Next
one.
one.
Next one, 100403, that's right, first reading.
A second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. 18, discuss and take possible action on revising policy number 103, equal educational opportunity. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 103 as read.
Second.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 19, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 402.01, equal opportunity employment. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 402.01 as read.
Second.
Second.
The first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 20, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 403.03, abuse of students by school district employees. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 403.03 as read.
Second.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Is that 21?
Yes.
22, discuss and take
We're on
possible,
We're on.
discuss and take possible action on revising policy 404.06, harassment, equal educational opportunities for, no, just harassment, that's the end of it. Okay.
Mhm.
Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to revise policy 404.06 as read.
Second?
Second.
The first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. 22, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 501, objectives for equal educational opportunities for students. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 501 as read.
Second?
Second.
And first and seconded, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You guys falling asleep here? Motion carries. Number 23, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 504.14, hazing, initiation, secret societies, or gang activities. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 504.14 as read.
Second?
Second.
And first and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 24, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 504.18, harassment. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 401.18 as read.
Second.
That's
504.18.
504.14.
Where did I say?
No, I did 404.
Yeah, we're at 50418.
We're on number 24 there.
50418.
That's what I said, right?
Oh, you said 505.
Oh.
Anyways, start with
Kangaroo.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 50418 as read.
All right, second.
Second.
It's been first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. 25, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 504.20, bullying, education, and intervention. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to revise policy 504.20 as read.
Second.
Second.
And first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. 26, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 504.21, dating violence prevention. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 50421 as read.
Second.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. 27, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 505.03, suspension and expulsion of students. Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to revise policy 505.03 as read.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. 28, discuss and take possible action on revising policy 612.05, individualized education program and family services plan. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to revise policy 61205 as read.
Second.
Second.
And first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Good job, Mike.
All right, thank you.
Some hyperventilating.
It is a, policy is boring, but it is a primary responsibility of the board, and so I do cringe sometimes when I get an email from NASB, we subscribe to their policy service. You know, when I open it and I see 13 attachments, I cringe only slightly, but, so anyway, yes, thank you for taking care of that. We're now in compliance, or will be certainly next month as well, when we have a second reading on those.
We're going to get those in the binder next month.
From those,
One place to sign.
I think Kelly said if we bring them in a week early, she'll film. Okay, we'll move on to reports. Number 29, activity director's report.
Teams are getting ready, so regular seasons are coming to an end. District cross country is Friday this week. No, Thursday. Friday. Thursday, they're running at Ainsworth. And then football has their last regular season game. Volleyball starting conference tournament on Saturday, then they start districts. So everything's pretty much wrapping up with that. Bowling schedule, starting to get that put together. We are in a weekend tournament, and then I have, I think, 4 or 5 duels already scheduled with that. Leonard Reisinger has finished his certification. We're just waiting on getting the certificate back so he can be the head coach.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
When they travel, they're going to take a school vehicle.
School vehicle, yes.
And Leonard will be able to drive it?
So we're going to look at the size of the team to see if we have too many. So if we have more than 10, if we need to take a bus. If we have more than 10, I'll probably talk to them about seeing if we can get a parent license on record here at school, so that way a parent can drive a school vehicle too. So that way, if they're gonna go anyways, just see if we could get somebody up to go along and drive for it. So we'd take 2 vans instead of taking a bus to a bowling event.
we'll do everything we can to take 2 vans, and I visited with Denny down at Bush and Row, and we're covered to have a parent drive a school vehicle. And I anticipate we'd probably be able to find somebody to do that, so it's likely to be 2 van events, you know, for bowling.
So bowling's underway, that'll be good, and that starts, December is when that starts. It'll be the winter months, same as basketball and wrestling. The Huddle camera is up and running. If you've seen, we've streamed everything in the Pirate Gym that we've had so far, trying to play more junior high games in there so we can get that so grandparents can watch and things of that sort. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's still saved on there. It's a great picture, great view, sound and everything. When you came in, if you saw, the championship wall is finished with all of our team championships. With that, I'm looking at adding a little student recognition, looking at our valedictorian, salutatorian for the year, being able to put their pictures up, a male and female speech and drama performer of the year, and I looked at an art student of the year, band student of the year, choir student of the year, just something so we're hitting all of our performing arts, not just our sports and activities too. So trying to get that addition made. I have something in the making. I should get a sample this week so we can see what that looks like. And then down below, it has all of your activities for the next month until our next board meeting. So a lot of it is just kind of finishing up and getting into the districts. So.
Have you had a chance to go and see what kind of viewing you've had on how?
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I think around 250 views for our last 3 events that we've had, total combined between the 3. So.
I like the scoreboard down at the bottom. That's nice that a lot of schools don't have. So.
Yep, Tom was working on that right after we got it installed and stuff. I don't think we had it for the first game, but then by the next one, he got it put on there, so it turned out pretty cool.
And those streams will stay
They'll stay on YouTube until I delete them.
Okay.
So, I mean, I
For a
just plan
while,
on
anyway.
leaving them on there for now.
Great. Yep.
So,
Sure.
I mean, unless somebody has a real problem with them being on there, then I can get rid of them, so.
No, keep them there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Principal's report for the series.
Okay, so our SAT team, student assistant team, that process is getting started back up for the year. We'll have our first SAT meetings October 23rd. So all of those dates for the year have been sent out to teachers, and the referral process has been just revised with them, so they're aware of that. IXL, I had sent numbers out to you, but Kyle and I were just looking, and it's kind of crazy because those numbers have jumped again. In the elementary, we have answered 68,188 questions now. So that's 28,000 questions more than we had answered last year by this time. And then in the high school, they were at 24,211. And there's actually 2 students who are on right now. And so in the last hour, those 2 students had answered 35 questions. So it's kind of cool being able to just be on and watch their analytics and just kind of see what they're going through. And I don't know, yeah, so there's IXL.
Map testing, we finished that in the month of September. Took a little bit longer than expected because we had a few kids out of the building, but we got that finished. And so then as a staff, we've got together and we've started going into the data and seeing what areas we need the most work on. With that, the high school has started their intervention. So actually we just started it today, doing reading and language is where we were taking off. So any student that's not going to meet the RIT standard, basically saying if they're not at grade level, and that's for any certain part of what they're tested on, we would have an intervention time to help give them a little bit extra viewing, a little bit extra work on those standards just to try and pull them up and help get them caught up to grade level. So that'll last about 6 to 7 weeks of that focus intervention time, and what's nice about it is we can break it down by standards. So if Heather struggles with prefixes and I struggle with spelling, let's say, I would work on spelling, she's going to work on prefixes, all right? So that's the nice part about it and us being able to do it. On the drawback, kids see it as a punishment. I know we had a few kids in here and stuff this morning, and they were looking at it as, why do I have to be in here? This is one of my better grades. And it's, yes, it might be one of your better grades, but according to the data that we have, this is an area that you struggle in. And trying to just shift the mindset of it's not a punishment, it's us trying to help you be more confident in that subject area and in an area that you might not think you have difficulties, but maybe you just don't want to share you have a difficulty. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge trying to shift that mindset too, in that it's not, we're not saying that you're not smart or anything like that. It's just we're just trying to get the most out of you and help you be productive.
So they can actually have a higher grade in one subject than another, but have to need help in that higher grade than the lower grade?
Yeah, because off of the scores that we get from testing and stuff, it's not just going to mirror what your GPA is.
And it could just be, you might have an overall math score that's high, but there might be one of maybe it's data is low in your math. So maybe you just need help in data. So maybe it just is one RIT band. So next, professional development. We are still working on our book study with the energy bus. We're just kind of working through that slowly, and we start each of our Wednesday PDs After going through a couple of the chapters with just some discussion time about aha moments, and then we do an activity with the staff. We've also, as Kyle was just talking, done some work on analyzing data and helping teachers learn how to dive in and learn how to read that data and understand how to get into it further. And then we're also getting back into that curriculum building. So the focus this year is on math. And so we started really looking at our priority standards and kind of honing in on that a little bit more. We will have some curriculum days this year and work with ESU, just as we did last year with ELA. So we started that work last week. Parent-teacher conferences. In the elementary building, we had over 95% success with phone calls and Zoom. The teachers really enjoyed conferences that way because it wasn't having to wait and wonder if parents were going to show up. It was just a phone call or a Zoom. In the high school, there was about 32% parents that showed up for conferences.
So I think this would be something that would work better with the high school, if we want to follow that.
I think it's tougher with the high school because kids are going to have 7 different teachers. And so then each kid's parents are going to have to meet with 7 different meetings or 7 different phone calls. I think in person is the easiest. I know figuring out how to get more involvement is something that I'm going to have to look at and trying to get that taken care of. But because we want people coming in and hearing how their students are doing and things of that sort. So that's something I'll have to work on.
I would say honestly, one of the reasons that the percentage was probably as low is just there was such a short time between the start of school and when conferences were. That probably played into it.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
So, last year's juniors, so the 19-20 juniors, didn't get to take their free ACT in the spring, and so the state offered that this fall. And so our seniors have all taken it now. We did have to use the makeup date. So we did test 2 separate dates. The first date we were at the public library. The second date we used the community building downtown from the city. But we did get all of our seniors their free ACT test that they could use from the state. So all that's taken care of and sent in. We should have results within, I think they said 2 to 8 weeks, broad range. So, but we'll be getting those back. And then the first quarter, we did change the end date of that. So coming up October 23rd, next Friday is when the first quarter will come to an end. And differences, I know last year in the high school, kids kept their grade and then continued on. We'll store grades at the end of the first quarter, so kids will start with a fresh slate again then in the second quarter, and then you take an average of those 2 grades together to get your semester grade. So that'll be something that's a little bit different for kids to learn and figure out. So that if they're asking questions or you get questions, just know that it's an average of the 2 quarters, but that's why they're starting over and starting fresh in the second quarter again.
Update on our Chromebooks.
Chromebooks. Not heard from them.
No. What's that? We don't have any
No,
new
you
information.
don't keep in contact, they don't tell you
Oh,
nothing?
yes, we keep in contact, but we get the same answer every time.
Which is?
So the update is, they're giving us nothing firm on when we might be able to expect them.
Okay.
So I think they might have told him, when he initially tried to order them this summer, late fall. I mean, I think they gave themselves months at that time. So I'll be delighted if we get them by the end of the semester. But our kids and Tom and our administrators, teachers are doing a great job making do with what we have. It's one of those where you don't know you miss it because you never had it. But so, you know, when they do come, it will be very good. And Mrs. Thompson will benefit most when they do arrive, because she'll get the devices that she's supposed to have that are now here on this side of the street.
Yeah, just on that case, like, and maybe this isn't right, but I got a sister who lives in Oregon, and she said the whole state, there isn't a school open in Oregon. Every kid is schooling at home. And each district decides whether it's an all-day class online, or some of it's just 2 hours in the morning, they get all their assignments for the day, and that's all they see their teacher. So can you imagine how many computers are waiting on in the state of Oregon, you know?
That's probably where they're all at.
So don't get your hopes up, they're coming anytime soon. Okay, thank you for that information. Oh, I got one other question. Our past administrator was high on John Baylor for ACT.
Yes.
Do you use?
We do have John Baylor. I talked with Mr. Peter about that, so we have it lined up, but we're gonna save that. Typically, you'll do that right around that March time, February time, as that's leading up to when we do the ACT test.
And
That'll be for the juniors.
Juniors.
Yep.
So did the seniors get it last year?
No, they started it. I'm trying to think of how far they got, because I know Dean did math with them, and I think they were just started science. So I think they got about half of it before they got started on it.
His ACT test would have been mid-April, and we
It
left
was a little
school
bit earlier
mid-March.
last year, so we started, I know we were almost halfway through.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
President's report. Okay, I've got, next month is evaluation for superintendent, and I can hand these out afterwards, I don't do it right now, but I got the evaluations to hand out to everybody. What I'd like to do this year is have everybody fill them out. I know last year we had them, we got them into Krista, and she tabulated them all by herself, but I think what I'd like to do this year is everybody take them home, fill them out, you don't put your name on them. And next month, I'd like to come in a half hour early, and we'll just tabulate them together. And then we need to do our comments as a unit anyway, and we'll do our comments. And if we can come in a half hour early, start the meeting, go into closed session, do this, and then we'll hand it to Dr. Arlt, and he'll have until the following month to look it over, and then we'll go into closed session the following month for evaluation. So that'd be November, we'll tabulate, December we'll have our evaluation. Does that sound all right with everybody?
Yes. Fine with me.
That's really true, right? Yeah.
Well, we used to always get them all to Krista, and she.
Well, but I mean, the timeline.
Timeline.
Well, we used to never not give them the month. We used to hand it to them, and then went into closed session. Well, they never had any time to look it over and see, you know, what we had written down. It was just spur of the moment stuff. So this way it gives Dr. Arlt a month to look it over, and then we come back and discuss it.
Okay.
Next month. That way we don't have to have a special meeting to do it or anything like that. So I'll hand these out after the meeting, and then just bring in the following.
Maybe we want to change that policy.
Yeah, I'll have to change the policy. So maybe we can have that by next meeting, so we can approve the policy before well, we can't, because we're gonna meet beforehand.
But
Well, if you
something
meet,
will have
if you
to
meet
be-
beforehand, your meeting begins then,
With
right?
that policy,
So
we'll have to open the meeting.
You could open the meeting, you could modify the policy so the entire board is part of the discussion of compiling the results, and then you can go into closed session with your documents and do that. So you and I might put the agenda together, and we can look at that timeline, push it out to everybody, see if that looks appropriate, and that would meet the needs, I think.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll move up our beginning of our meeting a half hour. But we'll, to 6:30, we'll open and do all that, and then we'll approve that agenda, or that policy,
Mhm.
and then we'll go into closed session. And then we'll try and come back and basically start our meeting around 7. I mean, it'll actually start at 6:30, but we won't do the official stuff till 7, so. Everybody's all right with that? Okay, number 32, superintendent report.
Okay, the 2020-2021 budget, has been submitted to all the necessary folks out there, so that's good, and levy amounts confirmed with the county clerks. Just, FYI, the custodian's wash machine down in the boiler room, wet kaput, that's when it cleans all the rags and all that. It's a disaster mess. Well, the one that Mrs. Jacobson has is like 20 years old, so we're gonna swap that out, get her a new one, so that hers in her FCS room is not used for mops and rags and all kinds of things, and then her dish towels and so on and whatever. So just you know, that's a unit we're shopping for. We're looking at about a $600-700 purchase from Menards, I believe, of all places. You can get just about anything there. Somebody's offered us $100 for the old ice cream machine. We talked about a few different things to do with that. Give it to the chamber, give it to this, give it to that. Well, I don't know. I say we take the money. Just so unless you're hearing any objections, you know.
Is it going a long ways away?
It will be as is, sold as is. So I mean, right now it's just sitting somewhere. $100 is probably reasonable to get rid of that. So so that
buy some buses too.
That will be done. Yes, we'll throw in a bus if you would like. You know, our just to update you on our you know, the CARES money. So, you know, the CARES money was the multi-trillion-dollar federal package to provide support for all states, businesses, schools, you know, paycheck protection. So one arm of the CARES Act was ESSERS, and that's elementary and secondary schools recovery. So ESSER money came from CARES money. It's really the ESSERS money that we were allotted, that amount that we were using to pay for our Chromebooks. And now you approved the purchase of Chromebooks before we knew what our ESSERS money was. Coincidentally, it's about the same amount, very close to it. Our non-public in our district is entitled to a share of our ESSERS money. You're aware of that. Now, the federal government miscalculated in the formula on how much money our non-public was supposed to get. They did it based on their entire population rather than based on their Title I population. So the money that we promised to our non-public, which is Zion, is really somewhat significantly more than really what they're supposed to get. But I suggest we just give them the $6,271. Now, we don't give them that money, actually. They're just entitled to use that money for you know, a variety of purchases of expenses that they've maybe incurred due to COVID. Okay, so I haven't received what their new allocation would be. Could be $1,200, could be $1,800. Don't know the formula, but it would be less than 62. The Department of Ed is encouraging public school districts to consider, if they haven't already expended those funds, to consider honoring that. I believe we should. Zion's a partner in teaching the kids in our district. They're using the monies for some of the similar things that we are, disinfecting purposes, technology for their classrooms and for their kids. So I suggest that we honor that amount, because quite honestly, when Mrs. Williams and I talked, I said, here's the amount that's been allocated to our non-public. Here are the areas that eligible expenses for that. So they had discussions with their board and with their teachers about where they might spend $6,271. But I gave her a heads up. I said, this figure was miscalculated. And that I would visit with the board about what you wanted to do. In the meantime, there have been discussions from the Department of Ed to school districts about, you know, depending upon the amount and whether they've expended any of those funds yet, consider honoring that if you would like. Well, so that thought is before us. I recommend that we honor it, as I mentioned. So.
Did they miscalculate that for a bunch of other?
They miscalculated it for every non-public in the state.
In the state.
Oh, just our state.
As far as I know. I don't know about other states. So again, the calculation's based on your Title I population, not your entire school population.
Does this need to be an action item? Or?
Well, no. I mean, we already have a signed document between us and Zion on that they want to participate. It was a simple document. Do you want to participate? Well, that means free money. Yes. But if you prefer, we can wait and see what that new allocation amount is. I mean, if it's $271, well, then that's over that's at $6,000 that really is supposed to go to the public district. But I don't know what that amount is yet. That's not been recalculated and sent to us.
Well, I don't have a problem with leaving it the way it is.
I think you just leave it.
What we do purchase will technically belong to the public district. We purchase it, we own it. It's like the textbook loan program, Rule 4. We buy textbooks, we loan them to our non-public. We actually don't do that with them, and we don't take advantage of Rule 4. But it's, so, for example, if they want a bunch of cleaning supplies, we just calculate about it, we just order in bulk, right, and if your hand sanitizer, whatever the case may be. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I mean,
Anybody else have any comments on that? Would you go in a little bit, I had a little bit of discussion on it. There's kind of a misconception out there about this money coming in and going to computers, about how this wasn't just money that was supposed to go to computers. It was you told me how you had to fill out a grant. It didn't just come to us just because everybody got it.
Yeah.
About how you had to go after it and what.
So, school districts were notified on what their eligible amounts are. So yes, they didn't just send checks to school districts. I had to complete a grant application to capture those funds. So I had to prepare a budget, and there are only certain eligible expenses. And again, they had to be COVID related. So they could be expenses that you have with regard, again, to cleaning and disinfecting, sanitizing, okay, or it could be to promote remote learning. And that's what I would guess a majority of school districts would be interested in spending the bulk of these funds on. And we fell right into that as we were talking about for really maybe years, trying to go more to a one-to-one model. And we've been moving towards that really for years. Waiting for just the right device. Chromebooks are obviously the most popular device in school districts for a one-to-one model because they are inexpensive and they're very limiting on really what kids can do, and we can keep it narrowed and focused. So as that's been presented to the board over the past months, and then you approved that purchase of those Chromebooks, since that time, the CARES and the ESSERS money came out, and our allocation, again, coincidentally, is almost precisely the amount of our Chromebook expense. And so I visited with you, a couple months ago. Hey, it makes sense to me that we just use these funds to pay this bill that we don't have yet because the Chromebooks aren't here and won't be for months. We have until 2022 to spend this money. Okay, but in the meantime, I had a deadline to complete a grant application to capture those funds and to get that grant application approved by the Department of Education. Okay, I've gone through that process. I've got it approved. It could be amended. The funds cannot be used to pay, for certain things. I know that I mentioned that we expect to have greater expense in substitute salaries. And we do. Not all related to COVID, though. We had 3 teachers on long-term illness. There's our greatest expense. Those aren't related to teacher isolations or quarantines. Okay, so it makes sense to pay our one-to-one bill with these ESSERS funds. Okay, in the meantime, another piece of the CARES Act are gear funds. And gear funds comes straight from the governor's office. The G in gear stands for governor. And we are allotted $400 per device, and this is specifically for devices, specifically for electronic devices. And again, I had to complete a grant application for that and create a budget and so on, somewhat similar. Now, the interesting part of the gear funds is, this came out in an email in June. and it came to our curriculum directors, which means it went to Mrs. Thompson. So in June, where everybody was shut down, locked down, Mrs. Thompson gets this email as the director of our curriculum from the Department of Ed, and it caught her attention. Folks, we get a variety of emails every day, and I make a quick assessment on how much time does this email need from me, okay? I make a quick assessment on that. This could have been one where Mrs. Thompson would have made a quick assessment, okay, this is just another solicitation, or it's, and it's a long one, and it's talking about technology and budgets and this and gear funds. We never heard of that. But she passes that on to me. She says, Dr. Earl, do we need to complete this digital learning profile? I said, well, let me take a look at that. And so I look at it, and I'm like, well, yeah, it looks like we have to create that to get our CARES money. And then as I look through it a little more, I'm like, I'm not sure if it does. Let me look into it. Just like so many things that have been fluid and different and new information, and we have to digest this, and we almost certainly have to ask somebody in the Department of Ed or our legal counsel, what is this, and what do we need to do with it? So I found out that no, we don't need to create this digital learning profile to get our CARES money, this $50-some thousand, okay? But we're going to do it anyway because there's something else out here that is interesting to me. This won't take long. Let's complete this digital learning profile. And so our administrators did that, got some help from Mr. Sauser. We put that thing together, we sent it in. Okay, so we got an application sent in. I recently heard back from them that indeed we are now eligible to purchase devices and be reimbursed $400 per device. I was on a meeting with the Department of Ed about this last week, and there were a variety of districts that were saying, what the heck, we didn't know. We didn't complete the application. Well, they dismissed that June email. Mrs. Thompson did, and she sent it to me, and we were fortunate enough, to take time to get that done and put it in. So we're eligible for this $400 per device. Okay, so as I'm looking at, we already purchased these Chromebooks. Well, what we haven't purchased yet, and which is maybe a phase 2 of our one-to-one plan, would be iPads for K-2. So gear funds, they sent out, they've already worked with Apple and other vendors on the devices. We don't even need to go shopping. They say, pick your device, we're going to reimburse you $400 per device. So I completed a grant application for 75 iPads that cost $429, and we're going to be reimbursed $400 of that $429. So unless something blows up, and it could, because I did reply, I got a confirmation. Dr. O, application approved. You'll be reimbursed $400 per device. So, okay, this looks legit. I forwarded it to the director of the gear funds on Friday and haven't heard back yet. I said, hey, Scott, does this mean we're good to go? I mean, is this really happening? Because it seems one of those too good to be true things, because it's a little bit different than the CARES application, the ESSERS application. And I haven't heard back, but I did get a confirmation email. Your order's been received, your district will be reimbursed $400 per device. So that's a very positive thing. Our entire one-to-one initiative appears to be funded by the CARES Act, this multi-trillion-dollar from back in March. Now that was the Washington D.C. Action.
Well, we get them.
So, yeah, indeed, because there's the demand, as you know, is, but even if it's February, March, April, it's still a savings to the district of approaching $100,000. So it's not just check comes in the mail. You're entitled to those funds, but you have to capture them by completing a budget and a grant application. Okay.
Thanks for doing that.
So that's all been done, and the same thing with our Title I and Title II money. I have to complete an ESSA consolidated grant application, every year, and so there are decisions, administrative decisions that go into that. Essentially, it's you have to go in and capture these funds in a grant application and have that approved, and quite often it's not, and they send it back with your errors and you fix them, and we have a consultant that I work with, to get that done. But every superintendent in the state of Nebraska, that's just one of their financial responsibility. Okay. I want to recognize Mrs. Thompson. She's the Nebraska Association of Elementary School Principals President for Region 3. So she'll be representing our district at that level. Won't require Mrs. Thompson to be gone for a variety of reasons. Of course, if there's any meetings, they're going to be Zoom anyway. But she participated, I think, in her first meeting as president last week, and so certainly honored to have her represent our district as the president of that organization. We've got Veterans Day program coming up, trying to make a decision about that and how that might look. Probably not going to have the event in the tartan that's traditional that you're familiar with. We're working on some type of, whether you call it virtual, whatever, but we are not going to just say no Veterans Day program this year. I think that would be derelict in our responsibility to find a way. And so we will do that. It might be, maybe we'll use our huddle camera to capture something in the pirate gym. That would be a nice video that we can put together for folks. I have Mrs. Hamilton, Linda Hamilton, tested positive for COVID, as you know. So we were down to 3. One of the other cooks came down with symptoms today. We're down to 2. Deb Jensen has offered to volunteer in the kitchen for the next 2 days. I have a couple other offers for folks to help. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. But we're shorthanded in there. We are going to go ahead and advertise in the paper this week and just see if we potentially get, we've never been overwhelmed with candidates for kitchen help. But we're going to try it, but our people are awesome. You saw that I did put out, temporary help. Can anybody help temporarily? And I've heard from 4 people, so I mean, we're going to get it covered. Linda's doing fine. Linda's got food ordered for the next 2 weeks. We're fine. It's just the prep, serving, and cleanup. It's plenty of work. But we'll get it done.
So the breakfast grab and go.
Grab and go, we've got to suspend right now. So if you want breakfast, what's that?
You doing it for the whole 2 weeks right now? Or
not necessarily. I want folks to be prepared to not have it for potentially until we're back to full strength. But that's just that extra bit in the morning where they've got to focus on lunch. You want breakfast, you got to go to the cafeteria to get breakfast. And so that's somewhat unfortunate. So I did, and I'm just finishing up, hustling right here real quick. I did attend the area membership meeting with NASB. Those were held virtually, and just a couple of good points that never before, especially in our rural school districts, never before as an entire community looked at the local school board and asked, how will you give us hope and keep us safe? And it's about how you're a community member. And so working with certainly the administration of your school to have your school be a place that gives people hope. That's where they send their children every day. Are my children safe? I really appreciate our attempt to grow together through this and to be a source of confidence for our community. And the board candidate webinar I attended as well. And there was some good discussion about, and Marcia may visit about this next week, engaging more stakeholders in your community. How do you engage more stakeholders? How do you engage those who maybe aren't making, who don't engage themselves? Because yes, they did talk about you representing constituents. You represent all constituents, even those who are unheard. And so Marcia will probably talk about that, and she certainly mentioned chain of command and how that's certainly vital to the cohesiveness of school board in relationship with administration. And State Education Conference is November 18 to 20. If anybody's interested in going hybrid, you can do it virtually. You can do it. You can attend. That's at Omaha. And I did. You did see the newspaper about the Hall of Fame, and yes, in that article I did mention that this isn't just for athletics or activities, but that's how we're starting it. So I certainly mentioned in there that we're very well aware that we have alumni whose greatness certainly blossomed after they left these halls, and those people will be worthy of recognition at some point in time when we get to that. But right now, we wanted to start with what was easier and what was measurable, a traditional Hall of Fame type. And so I have, 15 applications or nominations for that. So that will be awesome in the spring. I'm starting to work on a document, Wyatt, to push out to you, because Wyatt is on that committee. There's your enrollment summary. Meetings out of district, 2 of them.
How long do we have to apply for a state ed conference, you know? I know it's 500 people, so.
Yes, it's whether it's full or not. I haven't received notification that it's full, so I think you probably still have time, but I would probably make a decision about it pretty soon. I intend to attend. That is the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday prior to Thanksgiving.
That's all. All right, this time, is there anybody else who wants to bring anything up before we adjourn? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Don't forget your,
Yeah, that's what's that.
no?